Digimon is absolutely better than Pokemon. And you may immediately be thinking, well, are you talking about the games, the movies, the anime? What? I'm talking about all of it. But let's run through the history. Pokemon originally came out with Pocket Monsters Red and Pocket Monsters Green on February 27th, 1996, followed by the special edition Pocket Monsters Blue later that year, releasing internationally in 1998 and 1999 as Pokemon Red and Blue, with Pokemon Yellow released in Japan in 1998, thanks to the success of the anime, which came out a year earlier in 97, focusing so much on Pikachu. The yellow version was released to regions outside of Japan in 99 and 2000. Right around the same time, they looked up to Big Pop of Magic the Gathering and thought, hey, I could do that too, and came out with the Pokemon trading card game in 1999. Basically, as far as timeline, it took 2 years from the initial release in 1996 in Japan to realize they had an absolute cash monster on their hands, and decided it was time to dive in full force, expanding in every way possible for 2 years between 1998 and 2000. The entire franchise was originally conceived by this dude, recalling how he enjoyed catching insects and small creatures when he was a kid, leading to the game with similar aspects. Meanwhile, Digimon had a much different start to their franchise, originally coming out in June of 1997 as a virtual pet to be more masculine version of the Tamagotchi, which was slightly more targeted towards girls. Digimon wound up quickly iterating on their original product, updating their version 6 months after the original and a third generation in 1998, but then saw the opportunity for other media. But where things get really tricky is when they release the Pokemon anime to North America, because 4Kids Entertainment produced the first run of the English North American release on September 8th, 1998. Right before Pokemon Red and Blue were going to come out. But Digimon the anime released on Fox Kids on August 14th, 1999. So as far as North Americans are concerned, there's only an 11-month difference between when Pokemon and Digimon were coming out. So this all hits us pretty much at the same time, because you have to remember, at this time, it was much slower to keep up with trends. There was no YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, hell, there was hardly internet at this time. But here is where young RJ got to fully absorb everything Pokemon and Digimon had to offer. I was hyped as hell for it. I remember everyone was going nuts about Pokemon, so my dad took my cousin and I to Toys R Us to get the games. I got Pokemon Blue, while my cousin got Pokemon Red. My soon-to-be Blastoise was awesome, and I tried to get into the anime, but I just couldn't. It was entertaining, sure. I would put it on and it was fine, but nothing to get excited about. Nothing I had to see. But then I saw the Digimon anime, and that blew my mind when I was a kid. It was amazing, and only now as an adult can I really articulate the reasons why Digimon is so much better than Pokemon. So in discussing the anime, first, let's talk about Digimon. It's about a group of kids who get transported to a digital world, which may have sparked my initial love for isekai. But these kids meet some Digimon, aka digital monsters. These monsters can talk, they need to be taken care of, fed, and all the things you might do with a real Digimon that you may have purchased that's sort of similar to a Tamagotchi. You follow their journey as they grow and mature as people, as friends, and face hardships, overcoming them either through said growth or with ever cliche power of friendship. But it's filled with hard-hitting emotional moments, evil characters that become good, characters die, and are faced with real challenges to overcome. And experiencing all of them is an incredible journey. You care about the characters and the relationships while encouraging them to grow in the absolute best ways. Meanwhile, there's Pokemon, about a kid who wants to be the very best like no one ever was, but does almost nothing to actually make that happen. Ash, the main character of the original Pokemon, sleeps in and shows up late for his first chance to get a Pokemon and gets stuck with a Pikachu, even though that's not what he wanted initially. Sure, we grow to love Pikachu along with Ash, but this is already setting a bit of foreshadowing that Ash is not actually working towards achieving anything, because this is supposed to be his ultimate dream, yet he slept in anyways. But to become a Pokemon master, you need to collect 8 gym badges by defeating gym leaders. And Ash totally gets around this. Out of 8 gym badges needed, he only wins 3 of them by fairly defeating the gym leader in a Pokemon battle. In Pewter City, he doesn't win, and Brock gives him the badge because he was nice to his Pokemon, which it kind of generally be the assumption from Pokemon trainers, and if it's not, that's kind of a red flag. In Cerulean City, he doesn't beat Misty, he only gets it because Daisy convinces Misty that he would have won, and he had defeated Team Rocket helping her out, and considering the history of Jesse and James, that's like beating up a couple of disabled 4-year-olds. In Vermilion City, Ash actually wins for once, but then in Saffron City, his Haunter friend shows up, making Sabrina laugh, and he gets a badge for it. In Celadon City, Ash gets awarded the badge after dealing with the utterly inept Team Rocket again. In both Fuchsia City and Seafoam Island, Ash actually gets the badges legitimately for a nice change of pace, but then only to finish it off in Viridian City by getting a badge because all the gym Pokemon run away and Team Rocket's just unable to battle. They even try not to give him the badge, but it just happens to fall out of their hands when they explode. So we have Digimon, which shows kids striving against real challenges, overcoming them, showing true character growth while having a real emotional impact. And then we have Pokemon, which shows a slacker who woke up late, lucks out with a Pokemon who's pretty committed, and continues to get lucky 5 times out of the 8 gym leaders while beating on a couple of flunkies almost every episode. So yeah, Digimon in all aspects is a better anime. It had a better message for kids, it had better connections with the characters, all around it's just better. And I know there's probably some people furiously typing, what about the movies? Well, let's measure the movies slightly more objectively than just my opinion. Out of all the Pokemon movies on IMDb, less than half of them get a score of 6 out of 10 or better. 10 Pokemon movies score a 6 or better, with none of them breaking a 7. Meanwhile, want to take a guess at the Digimon movie scores? Out of 17 movies listed on IMDb, all of them are above a 6, with 8 of those movies breaking the 7-star mark. So yeah, as a whole, the Digimon movies are better too, but there's still the big elephant in the room. So I'm gonna ignore some of the generic default or gimmick spin-off games for each series, like generic puzzle games, pinball, trading cards, or racing games. But even with that, this one seems hard to compare. Pokemon games are better, right? Well, I might argue that it's not really Pokemon games are better, it's just that the Pokemon game is solid. You see, Digimon has a lot of games, and I mean a lot of games, with games similar to Pokemon, Persona, super heavy in story or super heavy in battles. Some focus just on how you treat Digimon, and depending on what you do, your Digimon can evolve in tons of different ways, which I always find to be a really interesting mechanic to play with. And in general, so many of these games have new mechanics that they actually test out, despite the fact that when I first played a Digimon game, my Digimon kept turning into that like weird sludge monster, but it was apparently because I didn't clean up the poop from the Digimon properly. But that being said, some of these games work really well, some of them don't work so well, but there's an insane variety of games and style of games. But what's important is they try new mechanics and evolve, just like the monsters in their games do. In fact, Jaden Animations has an entire video about the overwhelming attempt to give Digimon a shot as a Pokemon fan, which I highly recommend, even if one of the most highly recommended games just doesn't happen to be her style, so she skips over it. But what I'm really getting at is that Digimon has a huge variety and tries new things, but Pokemon doesn't. It has some cool spin-off games where it kind of thinks about making something new, like Detective Pikachu is a detective game, or Pokemon Rumble, which is more of a fighting game, or what happens when you turn Pokemon into a rail shooter with Pokemon Snap, which I absolutely love, but otherwise it's just one main Pokemon game. And yes, I mean just one game, because at its core, Pokemon is essentially just FIFA or Madden, but it just swaps out the athletes for anime monsters. It's the exact same game, repackaged over and over with an updated lineup and possibly updated graphics, even if it does break occasionally and is super glitchy on certain systems, even though they spend tons and tons of money on it, and it shouldn't be having those problems. There's rarely new mechanics or any major shifts. It's mostly just the same story over and over again, slightly repackaged as well. Even some of their spin-off games are literally just the main game but with smaller pieces. Like Pokemon Stadium is just the main game, but take away the story and keep the fights. Or Pokemon Go is just take away everything except leave a GPS version of catching the monsters. And this formula has gotten so stale over time, with people buying the exact same game over and over again, that all it took was one small team to make some of the most obvious improvements, and it would expose Pokemon for what it is. And in January of 2024, that's exactly what happened. With Palworld entering the scene, it showed everything that Pokemon should have been doing for so long. While it was not so subtly marketed as Pokemon with guns, that was only the tiniest piece of what it could be. It took aspects of so many other popular games, base building and crafting from games like Ark and Minecraft, adding in base raids, open world battles, and so many other things were just so damn fun. And it was done by a small team. It didn't take some insane AAA budget to make a game that glitches on the Switch like Pokemon. Just a group of indie developers who wanted to make a fun game, and it outshines Pokemon in so many ways. Now, Nintendo and Pokemon are obviously not too happy about this and are going to try to sue the crap out of them, despite the fact that Pokemon wasn't exactly super original either, with a lot of their work. Cue the Dragon Quest comparison. But it really highlighted what little effort Pokemon has put into their core games for years. Are Digimon games amazing? Honestly, most of them probably aren't, but there are plenty of good ones, and they try different things with their games, which is more than I can say for Pokemon. And while I loved the original Pokemon games, if you're not trying new things, giving me super interesting stories, or exploring interesting new mechanics, then why would I keep buying the same game over and over again with a new coat of paint? Frankly, I won't. Which is why, even though I might not play every Digimon game, I'm more likely to try out the next one to see if it has something new and interesting, rather than something I know hasn't really changed or innovated in almost 30 years. But anyways, that's my opinion on why Digimon is better than Pokemon in pretty much every aspect. Feel free to leave plenty of raging, unbridled fury in the comments about why I'm wrong and I should change all of my opinions. But if you want to hear me talk about more stuff, this is my channel. And if you want to hear me talk about D&D stuff, there's also this other channel of mine. But no matter whether your monsters are digital or pocket-sized, thanks for watching.